Welcome, Bitcoiners. Welcome, 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 welcome. We got to see who's around, see what's going on, see who's in the chat. Pardon me for being late. It was the stupid camera again. I had to reset my browser. Bon matin à tous. Good morning, everyone. Sun is bright and Bitcoin is running. I checked. You're right. You're right. I checked. I checked. Where do I sats? I don't even have to mention it, but I will just because I want to take a sip of coffee with everyone. Once a few more people straggle in here. Once a few more people straggle in. Good morning, Daniel. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Here we go. People coming, people coming. Jake, good day. B for victory. Oops, it moved. Good morning. Retour à Montréal. Frio. Il fait frio, c'est sûr. Good morning, Bitcoiners. From B for victory, indeed. Morning, PH. Morning. Morning, Bitty Boy. Bitty Boy Dre 86. Bitty Boy Dre. Bitcoin Pilgrim. Oops. Jeez, they're coming in hot. Can't keep up. Good morning, McTimmy. Hope you're doing well. Indeed, as our friend Where Do I Sats mentioned, the sun is bright. We're doing great. We're a little cloudy here, a little overcast, but Bitcoin's running, so who cares about the overcast, right? Let's have a coffee and talk about all the crazy things. So, as you know, we like to start the show with the fakest news we can find. The fakest indeed. And if you guys weren't aware, I do like baseball. Right? I don't really watch it as much as I used to. I don't know anything about these new rules with the clock. I haven't even checked it out. I don't know what's going on. I don't really know. When I was a kid, I loved it, right? And even as I got older, I liked it a lot. But with everything going on in the world, I'll tell you one thing that changed is the drama of sports doesn't really hit with me anymore. It's another one of these Bitcoin things that just changed in my life. I just don't find the drama as compelling. I really think of it all now as sports ball. You know, I had a friend whose mother was, Spanish speaker. She didn't speak English or French so well. And when we would watch sports, she would she said this sentence very well, the little people going on the screen, with her Spanish accent. I always thought she doesn't get how cool sports are. Right now she's totally right. Like when I think back, laughing at her son and me watching sports and caring about it all. Now I don't want to say anything about not playing sports. I love playing sports, and watch if you want, for sure. I still watch highlights every now and again of some hockey games. I haven't watched a hockey game or listened to a hockey game in years. I mean, it's got to be. I haven't watched a game in almost 10 years. And I listened to them on the radio for a long time after hockey games. I would just keep it in the background. But I haven't done that since I had children. So that's like 2016, 2017 time that I stopped that as well. So now I still will check into the standings. I'll notice who won the championship. So I'm still aware of what's going on, right? And I'm aware that there have been a lot of home runs hit in baseball, right? I've seen the home runs. They've become a thing now. They were really big in baseball in the 90s because of the steroids. And then they kind of went away. The Ichiro Suzuki era went to kind of small ball. But don't worry, guys. According to CBC and Dartmouth College, right? A climate researcher at Dartmouth College found that 500 more home runs have been hit since 2010 because of climate change. Yeah. Yeah. There's been 500 more home runs. So there would have been 500 less total in the major leagues if it wasn't for climate change. The physics is simple. They say it's simple. Come on. It's easy, you idiots. Warmer air is less dense, so the ball has an easier time making its way out of the park. So there you go. If we get some more global warming, that'll be the end of all the baseball home run records. I did pay a little bit of attention to Aaron Judge last year as he approached the 60 home runs. I thought that was pretty cool. I'd seen him live because I would go to Yankee Stadium from time to time when I guess I have seen a baseball game. That's true. I shouldn't say zero. I've been to a couple live baseball games. I went to a live hockey game in 2021, maybe too, something like that. So I guess I've seen a couple. I left in the second period though. It was it was actually funny. This is actually a funny story. I'll share it with you guys because there's some Quebecers in the call and some of these people. So this is hilarious. So I got invited to the Royal Bank like room or whatever to watch a Montreal Canadiens game in 2021. So you didn't have to wear a mask because we had the private room. All the other plebs had to sit there with the masks, you know. So I got invited, right? And I'm like, okay, sure, why not? I'll go to this game. So I arrive, and nice people, right? Nice people. Everyone's, it's a great little lodge. They got the drinks, and they got the food, and the chicken nuggets, and the hot dog machine, and the popcorn machine, and you have some stands you have your own stands, and you go sit down and watch the game, and you don't have to deal with anything, and it was nice, you know. But here's where it gets funny. So the Royal Bank guy who invited me right away starts introducing me to the other guests, right? And I'm there because of Bitcoin and all this stuff. So, and he had sort of brought a bunch of those people. And he brought the guy, this is 2021, November 2021. He brought the guy from the Caisse de dépôt de placement de Québec who made the big investment into Celsius. So he introduces me to this guy. And right away I said, this is the dumbest allocator in the province. He invested, and because everyone knew Celsius was a scam. I mean, everybody knew it. It was clear as day. And the Royal Bank guy, Royal Bank's a big Canadian bank. It's the biggest Canadian bank, if you didn't know that, Americans. So the Royal Bank guy introduces me to the Caisse de dépôt et placement de Québec guy. And, like he's kind of bragging that he's introducing this guy, and then the Caisse de placement guy, yeah, that's me, But he didn't know he was dealing with someone who knew what was going on in the world. So I laughed at him and dismissed him. And I said, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why don't you guys mine Bitcoin? Why don't you get on Hydro-Quebec? And, and he was like offended because I was toxic with him. Of course I was toxic with him, right? And, none of these bankers really understood how to handle it because they laughed. They thought it was more, they compartmentalized it as like locker room talk because I was just being hard with them. But I was being serious. I said, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen anyone in the world of finance do. And, he was sort of shocked. He was like, but they got a thing and you make money. I said, no. It's dumb. It's very dumb. So anyway, there you go. A little, and then in the end, it was so, I had a friend there. That's how I got invited. But in the end, I made it to the second period. I was like, I gotta go. I can't hang out with these people. I can't keep talking about it. That is funny. All those guys are fraudster and robbing Quebec for sure. Yeah. I mean, this was, like I said, this is November 2021. So no one knows about the Celsius fraud yet. Nothing has happened. But look, I knew because when I was doing events for CoinDesk, Mashinsky used to always beg me to be on stage, and I'd say, no way, it's not happening. Not happening. Forget it. And what he used to do to get around, he was never on stage, never put him on stage, never even, dealt with him. But he wouldn't ever buy sponsorships. So I knew what a scam it was because when I would, tour the event and I walk around, he would, and we also had a rule about sponsorship at CoinDesk: no booth babes, like no hiring, women to hand things out, or men or whatever. No hiring people out who are wearing, racer car clothes and all of that stuff. So no eye candy for the purpose of soliciting our guests who are there to learn, right? Because at CoinDesk, same as Bitcoin Magazine, the stuff I program is generally not taking into account sponsors. I'm there for editorial news and those kinds of things. So I'm there to help educate and put a program together that is rich and interesting and all those stuff. Of course, there's a commercial balance, but generally I'm on the side of the what's useful, what's news, what's information, what's education. That's what I'm proposing and arguing for. So we had this rule at CoinDesk that you couldn't do the stuff. So what he would do is, and this is how I knew it was a big scam, he'd hire them outside and they would sit outside the event. And right away I was like, hey man, this is not, it doesn't work on any level. And he would never be accepted as a speaker because that alone was terrible enough. So there you go, a Celsius story, and from someone, like I said, I knew many people knew. So I don't want to make it sound like I was the only person who knew it was a scam. Everybody knew. It was very obvious. It was not something that was a mystery or anything like that. So there you go, sports ball, sports ball indeed. All right, so today, let me just see I had a really neat thing of sort of predicting. So I used Chat GPT before I got on here just to, sometimes I've been throwing in the hopper, the subjects, and seeing what it comes up with as far as order. Because that's really what I do before we all meet here. That's the preparation, is I take all the news stories that I've thought were interesting and I try to put them in an order about an hour before the show that makes sense linearly, so I can tell a story, so I can remember them and I can remember the order, and you guys will not be bored with me reading a list, and make it entertaining, and put it into a whole package, right? And today I put in, just different things that I noticed are weakening the argument for centralization, and all those forces that promoted centralization in America more or less from the Civil War. I mean, right? We learned a lot about the capacity of the federal government through the exercise of the US Civil War. And that capacity of the US federal government persisted right through the Second World War, all of these wars being huge centralizing eras and epochs in American history. And the trend was to centralize. So I just showed I took the news stories today, fed them into the Chat GPT, and asked it to do sort of a prediction about trends and what will happen by the 2024 election, right? So first of all, the one of the predictions, and this is from this leaker case you're seeing everywhere now. So there's now, again, we can never trust information that we see out of Ukraine and Russia. I'm sure someone in the comments of YouTube yesterday mentioned there are good resources out there to understand what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. I bet there are. I'm going to look into them. But still, details, you're dealing with a collection of people who operate in psyops and disinformation and misinformation and all these things. So the point is, because it's a competitive environment for disinformation and misinformation, you really do have to take a lag on a few days to understand details. Now, you can have a picture of the whole situation that could be accurate, right? Or at least more accurate. But whenever news comes out, you got to pause and you got to hit the brakes, I think, no matter what source you're dealing with, right? That's just my feeling, right? Doesn't mean it changes the way you think about the whole war. It doesn't mean, doesn't mean that taking time to deal with details about the war has to change your ability to make conclusions about what you think is going on over there. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying this happened. Did it really happen? Right? This happened yesterday. Did it really happen? This happened last week. Maybe, right? Once a few weeks go by, you can start to have a better sense of what's going on, because the disinformation narratives could collapse. More information comes to light. Contradictory information comes to light. The motivations that cause someone to lie a month earlier might not be there anymore. The truth can come out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what we do have here, and again, we don't know the details, are a batch of classified documents that are appearing on social media sites. And this one was on World of Warcraft, as I understand. So someone had uploaded these on World of Warcraft. Someone found them, and I think it was World of Warcraft. It could have been a different game. It was on War Thunder forum. War Thunder. There's one on a Minecraft Discord server for a month, and another on War Thunder forum. So I guess all on Discord. And some people are saying now, so the information says that the casualties of the Ukraine army are preposterously larger than we've assumed, that most of the belligerents now, of the units that are colored Ukraine in the fight, are actually more American or NATO. And a lot of people now saying that because they have sustained so many casualties in Ukraine, that it's actually NATO litigating the war now, right? So now, again, a lot of people are saying the numbers were doctored. They were changed after the fact. The documents that were leaked are not the exact documents. As someone who traveled through many borders during COVID, I can tell you I changed a few documents, right? They were real until I had to change the country and the date and what happened, right? So those stupid COVID tests, right? Those stupid PCR things and or whatever. Sometimes when they had the rapid, if they said okay, rapid, I even got away once with the test itself being PCR tests, but I was coming from an island that didn't have PCR; they only had rapid, and so the results were from some other thing. And anyway, if you're just trying to fool apps and people at the border, right? It wasn't that hard. So, people doctor documents. It's the document is mostly official, except the thing that's important has changed. And in this case, when we're talking about numbers and casualties, they could have been changed. I don't know, right? So I'm not here telling you the document leak is real and everything in it is real. Go back to what I said at the start. Misinformation, don't trust anything. Now, that doesn't mean don't pursue information on the war. Just be careful, right? Don't be so sure. Narrative bias is at play here a lot. But here's what Matthew Pines says, right? So Matthew Pines, he's not getting into the details, this person, that many casualties, all that stuff. Matthew Pines, a speaker at Bitcoin 2023, May 18th to 20th in Miami. So Matthew Pines is a speaker. He'll be doing a session on exactly this stuff, sort of PSYOP protection and all that kind of stuff. So what he's saying is happening. So the New York Times reports that a new batch of classified documents have appeared on social media sites. Matthew Pine says that there's a very serious counterintelligence failure here, and he speculates that NATO and plausibly the Pentagon itself has a mole, and that you're starting to see information come out, and the thing is getting leaky. Right? We've heard about leaks for a long time, so that's the first thing. And one of the inputs that I had into this Chat GPT thing this morning said more or less that, and it's what I feel, right? And it's what I've been talking about all this time, that a deep state backlash and a series of high-profile leaks and whistleblowers can expose the deep state's influence in American politics and policymaking, and that these revelations of widespread surveillance, manipulation of public opinion, interference in domestic affairs can spark a national debate on the proper role of unelected bureaucrats in the government. And public sentiment can really turn against these folks in certain instances. Now, we don't necessarily see that every day today, but more and more people are becoming persuaded that there is such a thing as a deep state. Remember when Trump first said the deep state, I'm going to drain the swamp, right? One of his failures, right? Let's be honest about a failure of Trump. It's like what Mike Cernovich said from the day Trump went down the Paul Ryan road when he first took office. You're losing sight of the enemy. If you're trying to satisfy Paul Ryan's legislative agenda circa 2017, you're not actually over the target, right? You're way out in the field. And a lot of Trump's 2016 supporters told him that. Candidate Trump, 2016 Trump, when he was talking about draining the swamp and getting rid of these things, was over the target, right? He was right on top of the target. Wasn't the case anymore. Now, I think he's learned his lesson, right? The deep state has shown its absolute tenacity against him, right? Russia collusion, total deep state operation. I think we can conclude that easily. And you can tell that a lot of these actors never went away and continue to manipulate January 6th. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of people who believe that the whole indictment of Trump is really about provoking another reaction in order to pin the responsibility on Trump. A lot of people out there think this is a deep state operation to provoke anger and resentment and domestic terrorism, right? That's what it'll be labeled as. So anyone who supports Trump and attacks a public building or whatever will be tarred and feathered as a domestic terrorist, as we have seen President Biden suggest, right? All these people suggesting that domestic terrorism is the number one threat to America and all of these things. So now the way I see it, right? The way I see it, we have all of these centralizing consequences of the Civil War, of World War II, and these centralizing effects are what created this deep state apparatus, right? I don't think that's controversial at all. And now you actually have a plausible narrative in place where more and more people are saying we probably have to tear this whole thing down, like all of it. We have to drain the swamp, as Trump said. Now, if Trump gets another chance, right? He better pardon. He better pardon Ross. He better pardon Assange. He better pardon Snowden immediately. And these are the people that started this trend, right? Now, we can predict there's going to be more because I don't think everyone who works for the deep state is an evil person who is there to make sure Joe Biden gets his bum wiped on time and makes a bunch of kickbacks, right? Not everyone who signed up for that job is interested in working that way. So there are good guys, let's call them, in the deep state. I believe that, right? I could be wrong. I could be wrong. You know, it is a sort of test itself to be working for the deep state and whether or not you're independent minded enough. But I still believe that as a matter of patriotism, as a matter of just the brainwashing most Americans go through to believe that they're on the good side, I think does produce some good actors. So I have faith that there are some good people there doing great work. And it gets proven, I think, if there are such leakers, if leaking becomes even more important in the narrative between now and 2024 election, I think you are going to have a popular swell to drain the swamp. And that's a major pillar of centralization that will fall, right? A major pillar of centralization that will fall. It's not just that, though. You have another one, corruption in government, right? So take the Matthew Pine story and then, think of what's going on there, right? The leaks and what's going on. Now move over to the Biden story, right? The crime family, the Biden crime family, and everything to do with the Biden crime family. You now have so the whole thing in St. Croix looks like it's proceeding. I don't think they managed to stop it. They fired the girl, but it looks like they are going to be subpoenaing bank records, the Jamie Dimon one. Now, major U.S. banks have been subpoenaed for the Biden family records by Congress. So all of this data is starting to come up, right? And we're starting to see corruption at a scale that I think most Americans haven't really perceived before. Now, I don't think we're ever going to get into a world where we can actually persuade with the Hunter Biden story itself. I think enough people have been inoculated by it already. They've downloaded enough talking points into the brains of the NPCs to say, oh, it's porn, it's softcore. They're trying to protect you from softcore porn and all these kinds of things, right? That's what you've heard. That's been the main excuse. That's what Mehdi Hassan was trying to defend himself with when he had Matt Taibbi on the other day. And so you get a lot of folks that I think are going to be inoculated from the Hunter Biden thing. I think they've already excused it. But there's one more angle to the story, which could allow a whole new wave of Americans to get involved. And that is the drug part, right? So you get Vivek Ramaswamy today, right, saying that China is waging a modern day opium war against Americans. Over 100,000 Americans die every year due to fentanyl, mostly coming over our southern border. Now, 100,000 people a year dying is worse than the Vietnam War, right? It was about 70,000 in Vietnam, and that caused a huge issue. And now, all these numbers that you've seen, one of the things that had a lot of traction in Twitter and even just people commenting and pundits, we didn't talk about it here, but it's this life expectancy numbers that came out in the United States, right? The life expectancy graphs, right? Some study was done, American life expectancy in the toilet, why? And a lot of people had the observation, look, it's not that American old people aren't living as long as the old people in other countries. That's not the change. It's that we have so many young people dying that it's actually pulling the national average down, right? So it's not about access to healthcare for old people. It's not about their own healthiness. It's that there are so many young people now in America dying from fentanyl and these other things that you're experiencing a national drop in life expectancy. Now, I have not poured over the details of that study. That's just a reaction that I saw widely out there. And when you think about this fentanyl thing, that's probably the cause. 100,000 young people dying a year has an effect on the national life expectancy. And there are people who are saying that you can prove this is a business model of the CCP because now the newest batch, now that America has created somewhat of a strategy, which is to have the, what's it called again? There's a drug you can take and it goes in your nose and you respirate it. They're starting to keep it at pharmacies everywhere. People are starting to have their own one. It's the name of the antidote to overdosing on fentanyl. There is a product name to it that I'm not remembering right now. But here's the thing, right? Here's what's happening. The newest batches of fentanyl that are coming in, right? The newest batches of fentanyl. Narcan. Thank you, David. Thank you. Narcan. It is Narcan. Yes. The newest batch that's coming in, they're finding that it's being mixed with a horse tranquilizer. And the horse tranquilizer prevents the Narcan from working, right? So imagine the fentanyl coming in pre-mixed now, pre-mixed with something that doesn't have any high effect. You don't get any highness from it. So if you're really just a drug dealer or drug mixer, there's no reason why you would put this. There's no reason why you would put this um, um, tranquilizer in it, right? So they put this tranquilizer in it, and Jason Grellner, right, who's 30 years of counter narcotics, mentioned this on March 23rd that dealers are selling drugs that explicitly kill people now because they have this tranquilizer in it. Again, the tranquilizer prevents you from being able to breathe, which prevents the Narcan from being effective, which means people die. And his conclusion is if you wanted smoking gun evidence that this is a war effort, that this is chemical warfare being waged along the lines of the opium wars, you need look no further than this. It's a business model situation at this point, right? The point is to kill. If it was to addict and have a client base that was around, you wouldn't choose this cocktail. There's no way. There's no way logically you would choose this cocktail. Might there be another explanation? Maybe, maybe. But here's why it's important, right? Everyone in America is losing people to this. It's 100,000 a year. Everyone knows someone. Now, when I was a teenager, I lost one of my best friends in Montreal to heroin, just plain old heroin, right? And that was an anomaly. Like, people would that was not common, right? So he was one of my best friends. He overdosed on heroin in Montreal before any of this stuff was happening. And now, right, that was like rare, right? It was on the news. The news came to the funeral in my town. It was a big deal. Everyone was talking about it. It was all over the place. It was famous, right? It was a famous story. And at the time, you couldn't even muster any news coverage of any one of these people dying anymore. It's just so common. Now, I don't know how common it is in Quebec, but I feel like it's there too. But I don't think it's the target, right? The target is America, and it's happening in America at a rate that is touching everyone outside of political lines, right? This is no longer, Joe Biden's son had a laptop and some people saw it. Questions about blackmail, questions about leverage that were over Biden might start coming to surface simply because so many people are affected by this. Losing a friend, a loved one breaks, it's one of the, sadly, is one of the ways to break the political hypnosis. Not for everyone, that's how deep the political hypnosis can be, but for many people, right? For many people, they can say it's one of those enough is enough situations that opens people's eyes. And again, I don't see the traffic going the other way in the sense that I don't see a lot of people waking up and saying, oh, I've got to be a Biden supporter, right? Now, again, the answers aren't in politics. It's about breaking the hypnosis. I'm not expecting every one of those people to migrate over to Trump or Republican or Vivek, and then we have that solves everything, right? That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about decentralization. We're talking about one of the things that manages to keep our system centralized. It's not just the deep state. It is the appearance, the practice, and the role of the president. It's everything that went into creating this iconic position, the leader of the free world, as they call it, right? That's become a joke, right? The idea that Joe Biden is the leader of the free world is hilarious unto itself. But if ever, ever we find out how much leverage foreign countries through following the money, right? This is a follow the money exercise. If this becomes widely understood, you're going to have a collapse in faith of these institutions, the likes of which we have never even contemplated before, right? You're going to have, now, the reality of it might be even too big. It's like the inflation argument. It's like the mismanagement of our economy, which we're going to get to in a second, right? For some people, the problem is too big. This inflation thing, most people can't even look at it, right? This is a specter that doesn't exactly invite people to contemplate it. It's so scary and so complicated and so difficult to even get your mind around that most people will just turn and shy away from it. Right? It's scarier than the scary whatever's behind the door of economic collapse is not something most people are interested in looking through. Right? So this is along the same lines. The problem even today might be so big that people are avoiding seeing it, but you can't avoid it when it was your neighbor, your friend, your loved one who died. And now the thing about the opium or the fentanyl deaths is that it's not just the people who are addicted to drugs that are getting this. It's like girls who want to study and need whatever these Adderall things that people always take, right? Adderall, let's take an Adderall. And then they order the pills off of Instagram, right? Instagram person comes, oh, you want to study? Here's an Adderall. Everything's laced. Everything is laced now with this fentanyl. So you're getting people who tried to live a typical work hard, contribute American life, and are dying because the drugs are tainted. And the responsibility of that goes nowhere right now. And as we say a lot here, nature abhors a vacuum. Someone has to become the symbol of the degradation and the murder and the death and the opium war in America. And Hunter Biden might end up being that symbol. He might. I mean, the just his face with the teeth, you know, the one where he's getting them fixed and he's on the drugs and the crack and all this other stuff. Now, it's not there yet, right? It's still just a tinder fire. It's not really engulfed into a bonfire that can take down the government. Weirdly, right? If it was Trump, of course it would. If this was Trump Jr. or Eric or one of these other ones, you wouldn't hear the end of it. But with the deep state having its own troubles now, with the war that it's tangled itself into, with revelations that indeed Biden might be beholden. Now remember, the simulation prefers the most entertaining outcome, right? We've talked about that a lot here. And imagine the scenario where everyone with the P-tape and Trump, right? Remember the P-tape and Russia collusion, and the whole thing was maybe he's getting blackmailed by Russia because they know he pees on prostitutes. And so then he'll do whatever Putin asks. He's Putin's pet, right? That whole meme that the left bounced around for years amongst themselves. That whole idea, right, has already been presented to the American population. There's already a whole group of people, the people who hate Trump, that believe that a president was being blackmailed. Now, it is a hard thing for them to switch and think of the other one that's being blackmailed. But the precedent was already set. And if the simulation does tend towards the most entertaining outcome, it will be hilarious if we find out that the Biden administration indeed was being manipulated and blackmailed by foreign powers. So that's another reason why we might have a complete retelling of federalism after the 2024 election. Now, the next one here, so you can get, the deep state and mistrust that's growing, the actual centralized government that's been now corrupted and looks like it's being run by a crime family. I mean, that's what it looks like to me, right? I'm not an investigative journalist. I don't have the receipts. I have tons of narrative bias, but that doesn't change what I see. What I see is a small-time criminal family involved in all kinds of payments, involved in typical American corporate cronyism, and have now ascended to the presidency with a bunch of debts to pay to foreign countries because of all the money they received. Now, there's a way I'm wrong, maybe, right? But that's what I see today. I've seen no evidence to the contrary. I already concluded in my own mind that Joe Biden and the Biden family is a criminal enterprise and a criminal organization. Now, the Marco Polo paper with 500 or whatever criminal infractions, I bet you most of them are the same as this, paper thing on Trump. Like, you didn't spend the money out of the right account. It's all kind of fake, right? I bet you many of them are fake. But the story of foreign countries giving money to Hunter Biden and the potential leverage they have over the Biden family is real. And that's the bigger story. We'll see where it goes, right? So that's another one. The next one of these centralizing forces that seems to be running out of steam is the media, of course, right? Now we're going to go deep into this. We're going to go right to Noster because of what we're finding out about Elon and Substack and all that. So, first of all, if you guys didn't notice, yesterday we had a fight between Taibbi, Elon Musk, Schellenberger, Substack, Lynn Alden, everybody attacking Elon Musk. The story around it is more or less that Elon has stopped connections to Substack. Now, you had to go and rewind a few days earlier. Substack announced its Twitter competitor, which is a complete copy of the Twitter interface, and they're going to be adding Substack to that. My bet is, and a few people obviously agree with this, you get Wall Street Bets here, or no, Wall Street Silver here saying, let me just find the quote. Let me get the quote. Where is it? Okay, well, here's Mike Solana saying, I can't imagine this was the intention of the Substack ban, but with every independent writer effectively blocked from the platform, while every mainstream outlet continues to publish, it is no longer possible to learn everything we need to know about the world on Twitter. Right? So some movement there as far as decentralizing. You had Lynn Alden, who went on Twitter yesterday and called, I think rightly in this case, called Elon weak, a cuck, being afraid of competition, being afraid of other people having a platform, and da 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 da. Probably true, right? And he got into a little fight here with Matt Taibbi. Matt Taibbi saying, of all things, I learned earlier today that Substack links were being blocked on this platform. When I asked why, I was told it's a dispute over the new Substack Notes platform. So he was saying that he's moving over to Substack and staying on Substack. Brett Weinstein says, Elon Musk, you know that the thing where the left eats its own. You mustn't let that happen to the emerging Western values / free speech coalition. Many of us have backed your Twitter play and taken substantial heat for it, are thrown by this move. The public square isn't a monopoly. Elon Musk responds, Substack links were never blocked. That's a lie. I tried a link and I couldn't get through. I was trying to get through to maybe Doomberg, or I don't remember who I was trying to get through. It didn't work for me. So I don't think Elon's being truthful. Well, I don't know if he's lying. He might not know, right? CEOs don't always know. They tell their engineers to do a thing, and the engineers said they did it, but they didn't do it exactly the way, and there was a consequence, unintended consequence. So I don't want to say he's lying, but he's wrong. When he says Substack links were never blocked, Matt's statement is false. Substack links were blocked for me, right? I did the liking too. Couldn't like. That's not what Elon is saying. Elon is saying the Substack links were blocked. So he's not saying anything about liking. You were not able to like. I tried to like a Substack post, not allowed. 2, Substack was trying to download a massive portion of the Twitter database to bootstrap their Twitter clone. So their IP address is obviously untrusted, right? So on that level, I can give some benefit of the doubt to Elon, right? I think so. But he open sourced the whole thing the other day, didn't he? So what about the open sourcing, right? What about that? Like, I get you don't, if you open source it, what difference is if they're downloading the database? Well, the database is different, I guess. The database is all the tweets that have ever happened, not how the algorithm works. So maybe there's some room there. I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure. And then finally, he says, turns out that Matt was an employee of Substack, right? So Elon Musk unfollowed Matt Taibbi as a result. And we have all this drama today, right? Now, that's what's going on in the decentralized social media aspect. But we know these things are centralized, right? But back up for a second on the main thing, CNN, right? Here's something amazing. Here's something I didn't know. So it turns out that Jake Tapper, a CNN host. So I'm gonna tie the Elon Musk thing and the corporate broadcast together to move on after. So Elon Musk problems, Twitter issues. Here's the next one. Tapper. This is about Jake Tapper and RFK Jr. They were working together for a while. Now, Jake Tapper has a history of working across lines, but it hasn't worked in his favor. He did some work with Scott Adams, who I talk about all the time on this show. Now, he was guest writing some Dilbert comics a few years ago. And Scott Adams would draw them, Jake Tapper would write them, and it was a thing, right? They sold them for charity or some shit. But it was really part of Scott Adams' effort to sort of cross political lines. And he thought Jake Tapper was someone he could, let's say, persuade into being a more honest journalist and honest broker. It was a major failure. It didn't work out. He personally explained the Charlottesville hoax to Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper acknowledged it for a little while live on CNN. There was a brief period of like a month where he'd said it wasn't exactly that and all that, but that all went away. Jake Tapper turned around and did the knowing lie, right? So it's one thing to be wrong about Charlottesville if you don't know, right? If it was held from we acknowledge all the people who don't know the truth about Charlottesville. They're victims of a psyop and a persuasion crime, right? One of the worst hoaxes that Americans have ever been subjected to, such as what Biden is always promoting. That's the reason why I got in. Charlottesville is what made me run. I mean, that's the worst of the worst, right? Sowing racial dissent in America and discord in that way is one of the worst things you can do in this climate. And it personally is a problem because it puts a target on my back, right? I don't want to be, I don't want anyone justifying hating me because I supported Trump at that time. That's awful, right? And so that's why I have to talk about this stuff, because it's dangerous if I don't, right? It's absolutely dangerous. So here's what happened. He was supposed to be doing some work, and this is just to show you what Jake Tapper and these people are all about. This is just to show you the machinations, right? So here's what happened. Tapper spent several weeks working on a story with RFK and a team of enthusiastic ABC reporters and technicians. During his frequent conversations with me over that period, this is with RFK Jr., he was on fire with indignation over the Simpson Wood revelations. He acted like a journalist hoping to win an Emmy. The day before the piece was to air, an exasperated Tapper called me to say that ABC's corporate officials ordered him to pull the story. The network's pharmaceutical advertisers were threatening to cancel their advertising. Corporate told us to shut it down, Tapper fumed. Tapper told me that it was the first time in his career that ABC officials had ordered him to kill a story. So I guess this is before he was with CNN. ABC has... so anyway, that's what happened with Tapper. Now Tapper, right? So this was all about vaccines and what's going on, and he was going to win an Emmy. This is how Tapper described RFK Jr. 2 days ago. An anti-vaccine quack RFK Jr. has filed paperwork with the Federal Election Commission to run for president as a Democrat. Kennedy is such a healthcare menace. In 2019, even his cousins wrote an op-ed criticizing his anti-science views on life-saving vaccines, right? So that's what CNN said 2 days ago. Turns out this morning, big news out of Switzerland, they've banned and stopped all COVID vaccinations. All recommendations are withdrawn. No more vaccines until they look into the health effects. So, yeah, he says 75% of media is in legacy media is pharma. It is, yeah, it's been that way for a while. Just you don't need to know more than just watch it for an hour and count the percentage of ads that are this drug may cause like it's every ad, right? I haven't watched a minute of mainstream news over the air, over television airwaves in more than 10 years. I haven't had a television in, it's been 20 years maybe. They've come in and out of my house, but I've never had like cable and all of that stuff, right? And I usually don't have a television. I have one in storage somewhere, but no other home of mine even has a television. Multiple iPads and screens, but no television. So I see only the clips of things and reaction to mainstream news. I don't watch any of it. But now, so think about this, right? So now the centralized broadcasting services in America do have to deal with this pharma thing, right? They're coming head to head with it. And more people have questions about the vaccine. If countries like Switzerland stop it's going to send signals over to America. There's going to be smart people who revere, all these lefty people. They revere Europe and Switzerland. It's so amazing, right? Well, if they're not doing it, right, it's going to change. It's going to change, right? So now put them in order, right? You put the centralized service of the broadcasters, which were already a lost cause, and you even go to the next iteration and next generation of broadcast news, which is the social media stuff. And even those centralizing forces are becoming an issue. Now, journalists actually don't need these platforms the way they once did. Now, Substack has its own issues, of course. I don't see why Substack would be any better than Twitter. The one advantage is both of them aren't really advertiser based. They both have subscription models. Subscription is one of the ways we can maybe get out of this hole. But just look at what Nostr is doing, right? The zaps are way better than subscription because you can pay as you go, and individual things can become useful and viral and all that stuff. So the architecture and the hive mind of Nostr now has an actual express lane to grow. I didn't really see the chance of Nostr to take off in this time right now. I saw it in the distant future. Just the key pairs and all of that are great, right? I love the idea of signaling and signing with a key online directly. I've always thought that was the future. I've always thought that cryptographic keys themselves are currency for a digital world. I've always said that keys are currency, right? Keys are currency. Keys are currency. Right back to the Andreas Antonopoulos system of control idea, right? If you start making keys currency and digital signatures the actual demonstration of intention and consent, you've remade the world, right? In a way that's useful for the digital era. I learned that from Paul Stork. He's a Bitcoin dev, been around for a long time. He told me years ago, don't forget about the definitions of currency for a second. Currency is just like current, like electrical current. It just comes from usefulness, right? If it's current, if it's useful, that's it. That's the definition of currency. Useful in the time that you need it. And that's the simplest way of seeing it. And that right away sparked that idea in my head that, okay, well, cryptographic keys are currency, right? Just in general, cryptographic keys, currency. So keys are currency, and that is long-term what I always thought would help Nostr grow, or something like Nostr or whatever. So the idea now, though, that even social media, because of even the streak of centralization in it, even the streak of centralization is maybe not enough. And Elon is showing us that there is this huge avenue now to create something new. So anyway, a little bit of a small announcement. I'll be helping the Nostr folks, Jack Dorsey and others, maybe with an event in another part of the world for Nostr. They just did one in Costa Rica, and it was my colleague who helped organize it. So there's another one they want to plan in the autumn, and I might help them. So we'll see. I'm starting to think that Nostr is gonna make it, right? There's a demand for it, but it's in this trend of decentralizing forces that are coming, right? So now the last one. So remember, it starts with the distrust we have in the deep state, right, and all the problems they've created, right? That's a huge avenue to change America. Then it moves to the corruption of our federal elected officials, those people themselves becoming a reason to want to change the whole system, right? Then it goes to centralizing forces in media, right? Also no good. So the four things, those are three, the four things that support the modern centralized architecture of America that goes back to the Civil War and gets a lot of its juice during the Second World War, right? So the deep state, the bureaucracy, the elected officials, the centralized broadcast stuff and television and radio that was all propagated at that time. Add one more piece to it, the one all Bitcoiners are very familiar with, the banking system, the system of control, the money, right? Now, these four legs of the stool are, as we've seen, breaking all around us. The fourth one is probably the worst, right? So now what we've got is China on a gold shopping spree, right? Buying all kinds of gold. You get Peter St. Onge talking about the Feds yesterday warning of a silent bank run, which are the trillions of dollars that are draining out of banks and into money market funds, weakening the banks and further opening them up to um, being bankrupt, right? So US banking in really tough shape. Wall Street Silver here talking about China extending its gold shopping spree, saying, when will the West wake up? We keep suppressing the price of gold in our markets. Meanwhile, China and Russia keep buying up the gold cheap, knowing what is coming, right? So we're suppressing it, right, while they're buying it up cheap, right? Imagine. So add to that, we get more signs now that real estate, right? We talked about Raoul Pal yesterday. Blackstone real estate, the fund is limiting investor redemptions again. That's like the fourth time they've done it this year, right? I've been talking about the BlackRock investor redemptions being cut, right? Wall Street Silver says real estate securities are a weak point in our financial system. Sounds vaguely familiar. So money out of the system, banks becoming insolvent, entire industries that are the foundation of that system becoming insolvent. So you start to see the house of cards, right? It's like the centralized system is built on these things that are all breaking, these four pillars. One of the pillars is the banking and the economy, which is made by fake things like real estate, which is also falling apart, right? And uh, you add all of that to the equation, and it might things aren't looking good, right? But here's where centralizing forces come to their end and why American federalism and Bitcoin have many of the answers. So, about the deep state, not much you have to do other than shut it off, right? We don't have to replace it. We don't need more of that, right? We can shut it off and I think be fine, right? America can turn into itself and get rid of its foreign wars. We don't need to, with the amazing thing that Americans were blessed with, this land, um, focusing on ourselves means it's always meant that foreign policy is sort of a sport. It's sort of a pastime, right? It's not as serious in America as it is in other places that share these huge land borders with difficult places, right? America shares one contentious border with Mexico, but it's a manageable situation if we had the will to manage it. Nothing like what they're dealing with in China and Russia and the Middle East and all of these things, right? They're totally different national security parameters based on geography. America, absolutely blessed, right? It's like Abraham Lincoln said, no one will ever take a peaceful drink from the Mississippi. No foreign person attacking America will take a peaceful drink from the Mississippi River. It's not possible, right? You might get to like Washington State, but you ain't making it much further than that, right? Just based on the amount of Americans armed and how dangerous the country would be for guerrilla warfare. So, so the deep state probably doesn't need to be, for national security anyway, doesn't probably need to be replaced. The political order, right, can be liquidated, changed, appetites changed, the character of the roles changed, right? It's all made up, right? The presidency, there's no document that says it has to be practiced this way. It can just change, right? You can have someone like Ye become the president. Now, I'm not saying he's going to win this time, right? But there isn't a formal way to practice it. Obama did not write the book on how to practice the presidency. He perfected an old way it was practiced. Trump introduced variance and variety to that, and so did Biden, just because he's stupid, right? He's the dumbest one we've ever had by far. By far, there's never been a. If you thought George Bush Jr. was dumb, obviously he would kick Biden's ass in Jeopardy or any trivia game or anything like that, right? But here's the major federalizing force that's coming that I didn't even know about. So then you get Noster on the social media, right? So forces changing. But here's the really cool one. I didn't know anything about this. This is news to me, and it's amazing. And it's federalism again coming to the forefront in a way that I didn't understand was even possible in America. But it shows you the genius of American federalism and how much fertile ground we have there. Here's what it is. Texas is threatening to mint their own money. Did you know that states have seigniorage rights? I did not know that. Seigniorage being the ability to print money. So here's what happens. And this is happening now. The state of Texas, right? So here's a Yahoo article on it. The gold standard as it existed since under Bretton Woods until 1971 is likely never coming back, the article says. There's a myriad of reasons why. But let me get to the good stuff here. I picked a few different pages. Okay, here's what we're going for. Here's where it is. Okay. In Texas, a full State Senator Brian Hughes and Representative Mark DeRazio, so in the Senate and in the House, two Republicans of Texas, think they found a way to bring back many of the benefits of the gold standard. They introduced matching bills to their houses that proposed the introduction of a gold-backed digital currency. The bill states that the state controller shall establish a digital currency that is backed by gold so that each unit of the digital currency issued represents a particular fraction of a troy ounce of gold held in trust. They would also require that the trustee shall maintain enough gold to provide for the redemption in gold of all units of the digital currency that have been issued and are not yet redeemed from money or gold to prevent bank runs. And they say the bill is fascinating in many ways, right? It's an interesting attempt to return to some semblance of the gold standard. The bill also raises intriguing questions about the future of federalism in the United States. For example, would the Treasury Department allow Texas to create its own digital currency? There doesn't seem to be a clear answer, but it seems to be outlawed in the Constitution under Clause 1, Section 10, depending on your interpretation. The clause states that no state shall coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So the thing here is that they can make a gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, right? So other states tried this in 2008, apparently, but it looks like you're allowed, if it's backed by gold, to create your own money. Now, I think there's a way to make it with energy and Bitcoin and gold, and we'll see. But just the idea, just the flexing of a state muscle that has atrophied, that they thought didn't need to be used, right? There are muscles that states have that have atrophied because of the prominence of the federal government. But it's a pendulum, right? These are pendulums. The pendulum swung one way during the Civil War and continued right until Obama, for many good reasons, right? There were probably a million reasons why it had to go that way. And now it looks like it's going to swing back. And you're going to get states who understand what their rights are. And these vestigial rights of creating your own money might be one of them. Now, what it means for litigating those rights with the federal government, I don't know, right? How Bitcoin fits into it, don't know. It's still a decentralizing force. It's still federalism seeping control and power out of DC and the corporation that America turned into, USA Inc. out of DC, right? Which is not America. USA Inc. is just its own thing, right? And I think USA Inc. is going to collapse in the 2024 election because the things that hold it up, the deep state, the idea and brainwashing we have around the people who practice these roles, the leader of the free world thing, right? Like even if Trump comes back, he's not the leader of the free world. He's the newest circus leader, and you should watch it as a TV show, right? And I will be entertained with Trump too. I'll be watching people crying if it happens. Oh no, right? So I think that'll be hilarious, right? So I welcome it, but not because he's the leader of the free world, right? Now he can do things that will please me as someone who's going after decentralization. He might even embrace Bitcoin after what has happened to the dollar by his enemies. But we don't need the president to be the leader of the free world anymore. It's just not necessary, right? Satoshi Nakamoto is the leader of the free world, and he's got an agent in Bukele. Maybe we'll see. So there you go. That's what we got today. We got the things that hold the centralized forces that control America, the things that have crammed power into the middle. breaking, which we love, right? They call me an accelerationist. They call me an acceleration. Let's see some of these comments here. Yeah, Cool. Biden equals bagman. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the United States turns back into itself. Yeah, I think it can. Themselves. Yeah, 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 themselves. Yeah, turn back. Yeah, we got to change the plural, right? The biggest bozo in town. Yeah, there you go. All right, team. Have a great day, everyone. Where do I sats? Orange pill people, and get some sun. Enjoy Easter, the Easter weekend. He is risen tomorrow. Tomorrow is the day. And the world's changing, so we're happy. All right. Peace, team.